السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أهلا وسهلا بكم معنا في هذه الجلسة الثانية من Research Networking Sessions with the Embassy. تفضل أستاذ صالح. Mr. Saleh, you are muted.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. So, hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this day for the second edition of this special event. Please note that I'll be recording this session so we can share it with all the people afterwards. It is with great pleasure to welcome you all to this Embassy second research networking session. This type of session will enable us to meet our fellow colleagues, network and learn. I'm sincerely looking forward to hear about the outstanding of innovative research that are taking place at the doctoral level. I hope you join me too, in particularly thanking the organizing team for all the work they have done to make this happen, and also thanking our special guest of honor, Mr. the Ambassador of Algeria in London, for being with us today. However, most importantly, I want to thank the 5 PhD students accepted to take part in this event and also for sharing their research with us. And I wish them all the best in their career. I want to invite Mr. the Ambassador for some introductory remarks before we proceed with the session as it outlined in the program. I wish all the best for the speakers, and now the floor is yours, Mr. Ambassador.
شكرا سي صالحي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. I would like to thank you for organizing this webinar. I'd like also to welcome our dear students who are enrolled in UK universities for PhD programs. I want to tell you that it's a real pleasure, it's an honor, and it's a privilege to talk to you today. As an ambassador, I must say that I am very proud of you. Algeria as a nation is proud of you. You are the few of the Algerian people who are pursuing your studies at the highest levels, at the best British universities. I know this is a very challenging period in your life, but I am sure it's also the most rewarding. And we really commend your hard work, your perseverance, your commitment to go as high as possible. And many of you are in an advanced step to finish their studies. Some of you, maybe they are about to finish their thesis. So once again, I am really proud of you. You know, since I was designated as an ambassador in the UK, one of the most important tasks for me, besides representing our country in the UK, is to see how we can have the best conditions for the student to do their studies. So this dossier was at the hand of the consular service, and for me it was not normal, because following what you are doing is not just financial, but it's also very educational. We have, as an embassy, we have to should be in touch with everybody to see how you are doing, how is work doing, how is the research are doing, to be in contact with your universities. And that's what Mr. Salhi is doing with 2 of his colleagues. So we moved from a situation where the task was given to a financial agent. Now it's with Mr. Salhi, who is a full-blown diplomat, with another diplomat, and also with another employee from the embassy. So let me tell you that you are really in good hands. I know no matter what you do, it's not enough, but we are doing our best so that you can concentrate only on your studies. So I really wish you a lot of luck in what you're doing. And I know that you are intense pressure because, as I said, you are well advanced in your studies. And we hope that most of the questions of material question, as far as paying the scholarship, the stipends, that everything is fine. And we are all ears to hear any kind of things. And we also want you to always get in touch with the embassy. Maybe we don't have all the solutions, but I can commit myself that we will do our best. We will do our best, because if there is an investment that Algeria should do, it's in its human resources, and Algeria has a lot of human resources, and you are the best example. And let me also tell you that the fact that you are here in the UK, it's because of your skills, because of your commitment, because of the efforts that you've done in Algeria to be here. But it's also on the part of the government. You are part of the vision of Algeria. You know, since 1962, our independence, Algeria did a lot of things. But today, we have to do more, but better. The fact that we rely since 1962, since independence, mostly on the French language, at least in the economic sector, for us, that's not enough. We have to open new chapters. We have new windows, because the French, I have nothing against the French, that's a particularly beautiful language, but we have also our language, that is the Arabic language, the Amazigh language, that is part of our identity. But in terms of being open to the outside world, we have to communicate in English. And this is where your responsibility is. We hope that not only you will be the best student, but also to be the best professors, because you are part of a big strategy from the government, is to move Algeria, not relying on only one foreign language, but also and mostly on the English language. And because it will open a lot of gates, a lot of windows, a lot of opportunities. And so far, your training is doing well, you're studying, doing well, at least for the majority. And we really wish you luck, and the country wish you luck. And we hope that you will be most successful in your studies. And I'd like to thank you very much and wish you a lot of success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for that introduction and for opening this session. Thank you for all your efforts you made to make the student department operational, and for your supervision, and especially for your support. I wish you every success in your new position. And as a reminder, this is the last webinar hosted by the Ambassador of Algeria in London. He will take up his new position as Ambassador of Algeria in India.
Thank you for reminding this.
Once again, thank you for agreeing to be here with us today.
Thank you very much.
And without delay, I give the floor to Mr. Adjeb to moderate the moderator of the session. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. the Ambassador. Thank you so much, Mr. SALHI. I just want to make sure that everyone is on the right line so we can kickstart off the session of networking. I just want to remind everyone as well that the idea behind this session is to establish a safe space and a supportive environment for all Algerian researchers in the UK to showcase their research and touch base with their fellow colleagues and learn from one another. For this session, we've got 5 diverse research topics that I'm sincerely looking forward to hear about, which I bet you do to enjoy them. I would like to thank the speakers for taking the time to share these presentations with us. I know that their research is so diverse and so unique, and it's very challenging to squeeze that in like 3 minutes. So thank you so much for doing that. I also would like to thank my teammates, Aqila, Meziane, and Imane Ghazal, who will be sharing with me today, management of the session. Aqila will act as a timekeeper for the session, and Imane will highlight the key points at the end of the presentation. I would also like to thank Mr. SALHI personally for this initiative and moving forward to do more of these sessions, inshallah. Now let's move on to Aqila to explain her role, and then we move on to the presenters as well. Okay, go ahead, Aqila.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ahcene. Thank you, Mr. SALHI, and thank you, Mr. the Ambassador, for attending with us today and for this aspirational talk. Well, today I am the timekeeper of this session. I will be reminding our speakers of their time, so they will not exceed their 3 minutes time limit. I will be giving them a heads up after 30 seconds from their passing. Hopefully they will not, but after they pass their time limit, then they'll have like 60 seconds to close their presentations. So good luck for everyone.
Thank you, Aqila, for that. And without further ado, let's move on to our first speaker for today, Dr. to be Aimeur Meriem from Canterbury Christ Church University, with a topic entitled An Ethnography of the Pedagogy of Two Special Education Schools for Children with Autism in Algeria. Could we give her a co-host privilege, please, so she can share her screen with us?
Hello, everybody. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Meriem Aimeur, a PhD student at Canterbury Christ Church University. Thank you for this opportunity of presenting. So, my project is entitled An Ethnography of the Pedagogy of Two Special Education Schools for Children with Autism in Algeria. So before talking about my research, I first introduce what is meant by autism. So just a brief definition, autism is a lifelong neurodevelopmental disorder that affects the most fundamental aspects of individual life. So autistic people have severe problems in social communications, verbal and non-verbal communication problems, restricted repetitive behaviors. In the Algerian context, the prevalence of autistic children is still rising, and in 2020, it reached approximately 500,000. So the objectives of this research is to understand how pedagogy is shaped and implemented for autistic children in Algeria. It explores the educational practices inside schools, including teaching strategies and implementing programs. It also explores the impact of factors such as school environments, teacher trainings, parents' understandings in shaping the progress of children. The methodology followed for this research is ethnographic research relying on its different tools. So I have participant observations that I conducted over 5 months. Semi-structured interviews with educators and the parents of the children, informal conversations with educators, and document collection. So my study was investigated in 2 special schools in different geographical areas in Algeria, both urban and rural. And the details of my data were captured using photographs, audio and video recordings, as well as field notes, and my participants were approached using Arabic, French, and Kabyle to meet their needs. I used qualitative thematic analysis for my analysis, and among the findings of my research indicate the use of different educational interventions ranged into tasks addressing the social, behavioral, sensory, psychomotor, and even communication skills for all categories of children, either verbal and non-verbal, ranging from the 5th age to the 14th years old. And teachers, their role, they were trying to to prepare children for the social life, introducing them to be autonomous and independent. They use the implementation of and adaptation of teach program as a pedagogical approach to teach these children, and relying more on eclectic approaches to meet the need of the children in different contexts. The findings also indicates the significant role that the awareness of parents playing in supporting these children. And in the context of my research, parents showed less awareness, a lack of awareness in the understanding of autism and their needs. Thus, there is a limited support for them. Additionally, there has been an apparent religious influence of the religious beliefs influence. And
Meriem, you have 60 seconds from now, okay?
Thank you. And the social surrounding influence on both teachers and parents. That's all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Meriem, for this. Brilliant. It was brilliant discussion. Can I just remind everyone else, attendees, to save their questions afterwards? So we'll have a Q&A session afterwards. Let's now move on to our next speaker, Dr. Dalal Belarbi, with a presentation entitled, let me just find it. Go ahead, Dalal.
Hello, can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So hello, everyone. Just 1 minute. Okay, that's good. Hello, everyone. My name is Dalal Belarbi, and I'm here to present my PhD research entitled Youth, Digital Cultures and Gender, a comparative mixed method analysis of Algerian influencers, discourses, and performances on YouTube in a multi-thematic context. So my research investigates how youth, including influencers and audiences, construct digital cultures on social media, including the use of languages and different communicative strategies, and how gender is represented also on social media. It also aims to show the role of social media, especially YouTube in Algeria, and how influencers create content regarding their discourses and performances structure. So after reviewing the literature and previous research, most research about influencers revealed that it is tackled from a marketing perspective more than a linguistic, social, or cultural perspectives, a shortcoming that this research addresses. Furthermore, there is few to no research investigated the process of content creation and how it is shaped by gender and sociocultural background. So in order to undertake this research, I am using 2 phases based on sequential explanatory mixed method approach with 5 of the most followed male and female Algerian influencers on social media, in a timeline of 6 months, starting from May to November 2019, to observe the development of social media data. So this mixed method approach contains both quantitative and qualitative methods. So for the methods of data collection, the quantitative ones are key social media data, and the qualitative ones are transcriptions of the most popular videos on the influencers' YouTube channels and audiovisual analysis. However, the methods of data analysis, I've used descriptive and inferential statistics for the quantitative methods, and critical discourse analysis and performance theory for the qualitative methods. Now, some of the quantitative findings reveal that male influencers have more popular content, whereas female influencers, their content is segregated on YouTube, and audiences prefer entertainment and politics on males' channels, whereas they prefer lifestyle, including beauty, fashion, and family on females' videos. Also, the audience engage more with males' content, therefore they have high engagement rates, and the females have low to mediocre engagement rate compared to the males. Now, moving to some of the qualitative findings, they reveal that male discourses feature populism. It means they represent ordinary people on social media, and female discourses feature self-centeredness. Males' paralinguistic features are unbounded, whereas females' paralinguistic features are bounded, and paralinguistic features means the nonverbal communication. And also, males' performances are diverse, whereas female performances are limited, and males' content reflects power, whereas females' content reflects social class and submissiveness. Now, some of the main conclusions is that audiences prefer males' content because of populism in their videos. Their channels are considered as an alternative platform of representation pleasure and expression because of restrictions on mainstream media and the lack of media production except in Ramadan. Also, audiences prefer home-based videos on female channels because they reinforce the traditional social roles online. This is due to the social and cultural backgrounds encouraging domestic activities of women in the Arab world. And thank you so much for your attention.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for this. It was really clear back to the point. Yeah. Can I just remind everyone to just keep the questions afterwards and save them now so we can have them in the Q&A session. Let's now move on to our third speaker for today, Karoush Sami from Oxford University, with the title "In the Impact of the Prices on Algeria's Microeconomic Performance." The floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Let me just share the screen. Just a minor correction, Oxford Brookes University, not Oxford
Brooks,
University.
that's fine.
Yeah. All right, so this is going to be nice, short and sweet. I'm not going to make it very technical. I just want you to understand what I'm doing, and that's pretty much it. So the impact of oil prices on Algerians' macroeconomic performance, literally, that's exactly what I'm doing. It's self-explanatory. I'm going to start by speaking about the gap in research. So there is a lot of research about this topic, as you can imagine, because Algeria is very heavily dependent on oil. However, all the research that I've seen, none of them used Algerian oil to study Algeria. They used American oil, they used Brent oil, different oil from all across the world, except the Algerian oil. So that's the main gap in the research. The second gap is kind of like quality gap. So there is no paper in 5 or 4-star journals. So that's what we're doing. Me and my supervisors are really focusing on getting this paper to a well-respected journal, because again, like I said, the idea here is not very difficult. The idea here is to use the correct data and to publish this paper in a high-quality journal. And then from there, we can make it much more technical and whatnot. So what is the objectives and the aims of this paper? Is very simple. We're testing the impact of oil on our macroeconomic indicators. So we're talking about GDP and its components, and inflation, unemployment, exchange rate, and things of that sort. So we're doing causality tests. We're figuring out which model actually best represents our data, and so on. I think that's pretty much it in terms of other stuff would be technical, but I do not want to go into that right now. I want to go into the data and methodology. Data, this is the number one most important thing for my research. It took me about 2 years to compile all this data. COVID did not help. And also Algeria being a secretive country, and it was very hard to speak to anyone in a big organization like Sonatrach, for example, and so on. Luckily, I had help from a university professor, Dr. Bokrami from Regent's University. He actually really helped me out with that. And luckily enough, all the data is compiled right now. Everything is looking nice. The challenges right now are to clean up the data. That is the most important thing about research like this, because this research is mainly data analysis. You have a data set and you testing it against another data set and seeing what's the effect on one variable on the other. It's simple macroeconomic, econometric regressions, models, time series analysis. So it's nothing new, but it's done on a bigger scale, new data, and hopefully it's gonna be on a great journal. So right now we're in the stage of cleaning up our data, and we're gonna start testing very soon, and we're pretty much done. We kind of have a prediction of what the results are gonna be, and hopefully we will give back to the community by having models that can be tweaked slightly, and you can include whatever commodity you want to test on Algeria and other countries. So in a nutshell, that's my research. It's very simple. It just requires work. It requires dedication, and yeah, that's pretty much it. If anyone has any questions later on, please shoot. Thank you, guys. How am I doing on time? Was that 3 minutes?
30 seconds past your time.
Oh, there
Brilliant.
you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Let's just keep the questions afterwards. Let's now move on to our next speaker, Mahi Fathallah from Manchester University, and speech about the representation of Algerian identity in diasporic novel.
Hi everyone, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
All right, that's great. First of all, I would like to apologize for missing the previous meeting. It was out of my hands, as I explained previously.
That's
Thank you for setting up this one. That's another chance for me. So my research, as indicated by the title, is mainly about the Algerian identity, more specifically the representation of this identity in literary works done by Algerian expatriates, mainly diasporic subjects. And the main focus of my research is I can split it into two main points. The first one is whether the Algerian communities abroad qualify as diaspora, and the second point is what are the criteria that define the Algerian identity against other identities in host countries such as France, Canada, the US, and more importantly for me, New Caledonia, on which the written material is like literally non-existent. So when I started working on this research, it was like radically different. I started working on a psychological research that deals with the immigrant communities, especially the Algerian lifestyles, discussions with much into diaspora. And the new thing about my research, there are many research about Algerian diaspora, the Indian and the Chinese much more than the Algerian one. But the new thing I think is in the methodological framework. What I'm doing here is at the intersection of diaspora theory and the intersectionality. I think some of you are aware of the theory of intersectionality in identity studies. It deals with the idea that our existence as individuals or our identity is defined by the intersection of the many groups we belong to at the same time. For example, I belong to Algeria ethnically, nationally. I belong to, when it comes to my gender, I belong to the male category, and so on and so forth. So this is the methodological thing about my research. I'm dealing mainly with written material, novels, and autobiographical pieces of writing written by Algerian people living in France, Canada, and the US. And one of them is still living in Algeria, and I'm making a comparative study. What I'm trying to extract is how they self-perceive. And the work on the Franco-Algerian writer Azouz Begagi is already done. And the main focus is on two characters, himself and his brother, who represent two extremes of identification in France. One of them is like socially dismembered. He doesn't belong anywhere. He doesn't belong in the French community. He doesn't belong in the Algerian one. And the second one, Azouz, the writer himself, belongs in both. And I follow through the narrative how he's trying to negotiate his existence, his identity, both in Algeria and in France. So that's pretty much it. At this point, I think my research is still far away from drawing like final conclusions, but that's the idea brief. Thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you so much, Fathallah, for this. It was really brilliant. Thank you. Please keep your questions afterwards. And let's now move on to our final speaker for today, Salahuddin Belhanish from Canterbury Christ Church University. Salahuddin, whenever you are ready.
My clock.
Yep, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Salahuddin Belhanish from the University of Christ Church in Canterbury. I'm conducting a study to investigate the perceptions and experiences in early career development of middle school English teachers in Algeria. Just give me a second, I'm sharing this for you. My research problem is on the perceptions and experiences as mentioned in the title of these novice English teachers at the level of middle school. How do they come to construct their body of perceptions about teacher training and teacher development? And how could novice teachers mediate their training needs so that they attain a better teaching performance. In investigating the problem, I adopted a qualitative research approach, which accounts for the subjective perception, the subjective standpoints of the participants in addressing the issue. I mainly relied on interviews and observations with novice teachers, with slightly experienced teachers, with inspectors and teacher trainers to try to have a comprehensive view about the issue. The research so far has resulted in a few findings. First of all, middle school English teachers in Algeria, specifically in the field I had access to, which is Mdia region, they expressed their dissatisfaction with their training experiences. The dissatisfaction was in both initial training and in-service teacher training or professional development, whatever you want to call it. They did not find the policy to be comprehensive or effective in addressing their training needs. The program was very shallow for them, and the conditions were quite disastrous to make them comfortable in the professional learning arena. Two, there is a big issue with theory-practice divide, an inconsistent instruction which led to difficulties in implementing the instruction, which is my third theme. And finally, last but not least, there is a colonial post-colonial heritage that watches or oversees the status of English teacher and teacher training in Algeria. Maybe that's why English is always coming second after French in higher education, and even in in higher education and in teacher training as well. That's all, and I welcome your questions.
Well done. Thank you so much, Salah, for that. It was really brief and to the point. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we are now safe to move on to the Q&A questions, the Q&A sessions I meant, from the audience. So if you have a questions, you can chat or you can raise your hand using the reaction, and I'll manage that and address that to the speakers. And yeah, go ahead. Let's hear it from the public. Okay, we have one raised hand. Mohammed, go ahead, Mohammed.
Yeah, hi. I want to ask the lady that spoke about the social media stuff.
Dalal, yeah.
YouTube, Dalal. Hi, Dalal. Because you're doing research on Algerian social influences, right? I've never, I personally, I grew up here in the UK and I've never, I'm not familiar with them. My question is, and I don't even know if this is part of your research, but because kind of YouTube and online stuff is international, what do you think about their political, again, this is a sensitive topic, but what do you think about this political identity? Are they taking a lot from, international kind of framework, like mindsets, or are they really focusing on what's going on in Algeria?
Very interesting. Dalal, go ahead. You are muted, Dalal.
Sorry, thank you for your question. It's really interesting. And so when we talk about influencers and social media, politics is a growing topic nowadays. But they're still not focusing on worldwide issues, but mainly local issues, and they elaborate them using different genres. For example, they can use entertainment, poems, and so on, because they cannot reveal it like clearly and say their political opinions clearly. So they have to use an indirect style, but their main focus is mainly local. So you can say, for example, I can give you an example of Diesel Joker and NST. Now they talk about politics a lot, and they've been talking since 2014, but their focus, as I've said, is mainly local. So they're still not adopting worldwide approaches or worldwide viewpoints. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much. It's a bit relaxing a little bit to see that our youth and influencers are focusing on Algeria. Yeah. They're not focusing on worldwide problems that sometimes are nonsense. Yeah. So it's really good to see them focus on our own problems.
Exactly. And this is mainly according to research and also previous research, it is mainly because of the restrictions on mainstream media, because mainstream media cannot also reveal some political opinions. That is why they are adopting social media and influencers platforms to talk about these issues.
Brilliant. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I've got a follow-up questions from the public to Dalal as well. It's about the type from Meriem Abed, about the type of analysis you undertake during the study. Could you please elaborate on that?
Yes, so the
presentation, but yeah.
Yeah, so the analysis is a mixed method approach. I have used the first phase is mainly quantitative. I have used key social media data. They were taken from YouTube. It's mainly about the number of subscriptions and the number of views, likes and dislikes of both male and female influencers. And then I've analyzed them using descriptive and inferential statistics. I've seen like the total sum of broadcast time, the total time of the viewership of videos and so on. And then I've used also the inferential statistics to see the growth of percentages of these characteristics. Then I've moved to the second phase, which is qualitative. I've used the transcriptions of the most popular videos on the influencers channel. I've transcribed them and then used audiovisual analysis to retrieve the necessary information, like what I see, what I hear, in order to fulfill the requirements of discourse and also paralinguistic features and performance.
Brilliant. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Let's take another question from the public. Imane, your hand is raised. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. My question actually to Mahi about the Algerian identity representation. So I was reading the other days about how the guilt issue for the Algerians who are living in France. So they're feeling like they're living in a better condition than their brothers and sisters in Algeria. So how do you think the guilt feeling for Algerians who are living in France, whether in colonial time or even now, affected their Algerian identity or their representation? Thank you.
Brilliant.
All right, thank you. That's an interesting question. I wouldn't necessarily agree that most people living in France feel some kind of guilt that the Algerians living in Algeria are not under the same or even better conditions. What I'm really concerned about is the theoretical makeup of the Algerian and the French identity in terms of the ethno-nationalist and even the racial realms. For example, when we talk about the French identity, it's mostly racial. I'll give you one example. For example, North Africans or Africans in general, when they go to France, it's not that easy to get to the higher offices in politics. Take, for example, Sarkozy, the former president. He's not originally French. He came from Hungary, but because he is white and his parents are white as well, he could make it to the highest place in the country. So this is what I'm mostly concerned with. And if we can talk about guilt, I think there is sort of guilt that the children of immigrants have towards their fathers or their parents in general, because the immigration that was initiated by their fathers resulted in this identity problem or dilemma that they don't really know where they belong. So they have to occupy this in-betweenness or this in-between space for the rest of their lives. That's how I would put it. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
It did. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mahi, for that. We have another question from Selma to Meriem about the autism pedagogy. She's interested to know, how did you refer to the autism in your research? Was it neurodiversity or disability? Meriem?
Yeah, well, thank you for your question. Where I personally refer to autism in my research as neurodiversity. However, in the context of my research, most of my participants still rely on the medical model of this, so still they medicalize and see it as a disability. And so the objective of my research is to raise awareness and to raise the issue of what's happening, so that to reach neurodiversity. I hope I answered.
Thank you so much, Meriem, for that. Yeah. Let's take another question. Okay, I've got a question for you, Sami. if you don't mind. Do you happen to have like hypotheses to test through the data, and what kind of?
Yeah, the hypothesis, again, they're very straightforward. How each sector in Algeria is how deep is the relationship, between each sector and oil revenues. So the way I'm looking at it is not only the big effect, the macroeconomic effect, but we're trying to go deep within every sector and see which sector is the most vulnerable. Okay. And there is a concept of dualist economy that's happening in Algeria. It's like, what is our economy without our oil exports? What is it? And it's nothing. It's very weak, Okay. So that's it goes into that. So the hypothesis is always this sector is heavily dependent on oil, yes or no. So it's kind of like that. Very straightforward, like I said, but we need credible papers.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Sami. Do we have another question from the audience? Okay. Whilst we are waiting, can I go back to Meriem with another question, if you don't mind? Meriem, could you please give us some kind of like elaboration about the ethics and the access?
Yeah, it was very challenging for me. So the ethics, as you know, the most universities here, I applied for ethical approval before going. Okay. However, in the Algerian context, they didn't accept my approval from university. So I was obliged to go to the ministry and get an approval from the ministry. And so I looked in different places in Algeria, just like Bijaya, Algiers, Bouira, Boumertas, etc. However, only 2 special schools accepted me, and my access was very limited. However, with the methodology that I followed, an ethnographic approach, so little by little, I built that relationship with them, and so the access challenges started to be more easier. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's really nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have another question?
You are muted, Ahcene.
Yes, Imane, go ahead, Imane.
Yes, hi. So my question is for Salah, if that's all right. So considering the fact that I taught like in middle school, but I had no initial training, I just did like in-service teaching. So I'm just wondering, like, if you notice any difference between teachers who had like their own training during the summer and started teaching, and between the teachers that they had like in-service training. So did you find like any training was like better? Of course, like in the perspective of the novice teachers themselves, like what training they found like it was the best one?
A very interesting question, Imane. In fact, this is one of the findings that my research has arrived to. A few of my participants reported that they didn't have an initial training. Out of the waiting list, they were recruited, and they found themselves with the little knowledge they had from university facing those learners and with big questions about how to deliver such and such skill and sub-skill. But first of all, there is an issue with the instruction or the top, let's say the stakeholders, starting from the inspectorate and the director of education in Algeria. They both negate the responsibility. They can't assume the responsibility of inserting teachers in the field without training, saying that it's just a necessity and it's plus fort que nous. That's one. Two, for teachers themselves, they wish, and they express this clearly, they wish they had an initial training, as long as the initial training is effective and based on real classroom experiences and data, even data from research, they would prefer. But still, they say if the initial training was as shallow and was as superficial as whatever other teachers who endeavored the initial training had, then it would be useless. This leads me to explain to just a brief mentioning of what did they do to overcome that. Mainly it was personal efforts of autonomous professional development, engaging in online sessions, and having peer observations all the time. I hope this answers your question, Imane.
Yeah, it did. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salah and Imane, for that. We have two raised hands, Aqila and Noor. Who wants to go first? Okay, go ahead.
Noor, yeah, Noor, that's fine.
Go ahead, Noor.
Well, it's not a question, but it's just a comment on Salah's research. I worked as a teacher in middle school back in Algeria. It was in 2016, and I wasn't taken from the waiting list. Therefore, I had a training, and the training was not that bad, but it was, I would say it would be doable if it was in a 15 to 20 student classroom. Because when you try to apply what was been taught in the training, it was impossible to apply it in the classroom of over 40 students. So yeah, I just wanted to say that some areas like had trainings, but it was just not relevant.
Good to see you, Imane. Well, certainly the effectiveness of training is not automatic and guaranteed by attending the training. That's why I said, one of my participants said, if only I could attend the training, I could have done differently in my first weeks of teaching. The major issue that could relate to your opinion is we do not have a solid policy of teacher training for teachers who qualified from universities without a teaching degree. It's basically what the policy determines, 2015 policy. It clearly says that inspectors and teacher trainers have total freedom in designing whatever convenient teacher training program they see fit to preparing students for the actual classroom environment. This could be a margin of creativity, but it also points or posits an issue of accountability, which is hard to trace back home.
Exactly, I agree to that, because I remember that my inspector at that time was creative, and he wanted to integrate different learning, a more like interactive way of teaching English. And he was committed to, to design his own template of teacher training programs, which was, to some extent, it was successful, because it's the effort that counts at that point, because it's something new. And the only thing is that it wasn't applicable to a 40+ student classroom.
Agree. I totally agree with you, Imane. Again, creativity could be an add-on, but it cannot be the basis of teacher training, teacher professional development in a system as big as Algeria. I think it's about 35,000 or 45,000 middle schools that we have in Algeria.
Thank you so much, Salah, for that. We've got two other questions from the public, two raised hand, and one in the chat. Let's go to Aqila and then Mr. SALHI, and the last question from the chat. Go ahead, Aqila.
Mine was like just an add-on question to Salahuddin. I'm afraid you are going to keep you talking today. My question has relation to the word perceptions in the title of your research. For me, that word was a bit problematic, because I'm also like interested in researching the experiences of teachers, except that I'm interested in teachers of university, basically lecturers. So how do you attend to justify your understanding, be it qualitative in this case, of the word perception?
Okay,
just 1 minute, Salah. This questions also relate to another question from the chat, so you can manage them both. Khawla from Limerick also asking a question similar to this. What kind of instruments research you adopt to investigate teachers' perceptions and beliefs specifically? Okay, so the concept, perceptions, and the tools. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Thank you both for the interesting question. In fact, I'll start with you, Aqila. Perceptions are known to be unmeasurable, and even my research does not aim to measure these perceptions. I take the definition of perception as mentioned in the dictionaries and as conventionally accepted by literature, which is how people see things and make sense of things. So basically, I try to see the perspective of teachers about the teacher training or whatever other phenomenon in the teacher development. I account for their experiences to be the source of their perceptions. 1, 2, I account for their cultures to be the most important factor affecting their perceptions, or that shape their perceptions at least. And first and foremost, their experiences as students. They've been the best observers ever for about 13 or 14 years before engaging in teaching. So this shapes to a great extent the perception or the view of the world that they construct in order to look at things, in this case, teacher training.
Okay, Salah, 30 seconds to wrap up the other concept.
Okay, will do. For the teachers' perceptions, I don't think I've used a specialized instrument to measure that or to look at that. It's just the kind of questions that I ask in the interview has to do with the way people define things, the way people look at things and comment on things, and how do they think these kind of stuff. For example, an initial teacher training skill, how do they make sense of it according to their system of beliefs? Does it contradict? Does it serve? Does it help? Does it not?
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Salah.
Feel free to email any questions if you want.
Mr. Saleh, go ahead with the question.
Thank you, Mr. Adjeb. I go briefly with my question to Mr. Sami Karouche. So I ask him, just do you think that the use of renewable energies can have a positive or a negative impact on the Algerian economy and on the production and on the commercialization of the hydrocarbon fuels, gas and oil? Thank you.
Yeah, so when it comes to renewables, the problem with renewables is that there is no...
Sorry, Sami, just to interrupt you, just could you take like a minute or so to answer the question, because you have 20 minutes. Yeah, thank you.
I got you. So the problem with renewables, in a nutshell, renewables take time to give you a return, and hydrocarbon give you return immediately. And also what's the issue with Algeria is that there is huge land that is not explored even. So forget exploitation. Let's start thinking of exploring. There's a lot more places that we don't know what's in there. So hydrocarbons are not going anywhere in the near future. The technology to make renewables very affordable and very high in return is still very far. So right now we need to focus on using hydrocarbons in the best way possible, in the most environmentally friendly. But of course, renewables will always revolutionize the country. They will always give us other ways of being self-sustained. So hopefully we will see that, but not anytime in the near future. We have to focus on what we have right now and develop the other sector. Hopefully in the next 30 years, 40 years, the generation at that time will have it ready so it can easily transition into it, what could be environmentally friendly.
Thank you, Sami, for that.
Thank you for that. And Ahcene, we are past our 20 minutes question and answer session. So maybe people who have questions could email our presenters.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, let's go ahead with Imane and the highlights. Go ahead, Imane.
Yes, hi. Okay, so I will be just summarizing the key points of the presentations. If I made any mistake, please correct me in whatever possible way. So we have the first one is Aimeur, and her research is around autism, where she defines it as a neuro development of disorder impacting individuals' life. So three main important highlights that Meriem focuses on is pedagogy and autism, educational practices, and the impact of different factors relating to the teachers and parents. She's using ethnographic for 5 months, using observation, interviews, informal conversation, and document collection, and urban and rural areas. She used 23 languages, and she's used the thematic analysis. for her research. Her most important findings is the educational interventions, the teach programs, and the lack of parents' awareness when dealing with the autistic kids. The second presenter was like Dalal Belarbi, and it's about like youth languages use and communicative strategy, especially gender. Dalal, like she found like the most important gaps is a lot of research is focusing on marketing, not the social and linguistic aspect. Like she's going to focus on and how is it the discourses are shaped by gender. She's using explanatory mixed method, using quantitative and qualitative. One of the most important findings that she found, like male influencers are focused on politics and entertainment, whereas female influencers focus more on lifestyle. And even audience prefers male content because of populism in their videos as well. So the third one was Sami, and he found like the gap in his research, like there are a lot of research, but no actually like specific to study Algeria. And how the second gap as well is the quality gap. So he's looking forward to publish in really high impact journals, so he can increase like the visibility to study Algeria. A lot of factors he's focusing on: GDP, exchange rate, unemployment. And he's looking for a specific model to study Algeria with. So in the data and methodology, he has spent 2 years, as well as like he has suffered from the COVID impact. Trust me, we all did, and especially with the nature of secretive country, he didn't find like major help, but eventually he did manage to overcome these kinds of challenges. Now, the most important challenge was to clean up the data and just to compare the data set. So at the end, like he has sort of a prediction on how to give certain model to accommodate the how to test like the oil with macroeconomic in Algeria. The fourth one was like Mahi Fathallah with the Algerian identity. So how can the Algerian qualify diaspora? The criteria to find Algerian identities in France and also in New Caledonia, where he found like lack of research. Also, like he found like the original contribution in his research is the methodology itself, but he will use the intersectionality and identity aspect when dealing with or when studying Algerian communities in host countries. So at the end of the day, he talks about Aziz Gefi, that how he can negotiate his identity and his brothers in between like being French, and Algerian as well. And then last but not least is Salahuddin with his research on novice middle English teachers and their experiences and perceptions. For his methodology, he's using qualitative, so mainly interviews, observations with novice teachers, experience, and even trainers. So he found like mainly dissatisfactory experience with training as well. He found like three main aspects when it comes to that dissatisfaction is because of policy itself, the program, and the conditions that the teachers are trained on. So the second thing he found for theory practice, divide the inconsistencies, and again with the huge problem of social problem with the post-colonial heritage, whereas like the positionality of English compared to the other languages, mainly the foreign language French. So sorry, there were like too many other points. I couldn't like cover them all, but I think like that's the main like highlights.
Well done, Imane. Well done.
Well done. Thank you so much, Imane, for that. Aqila, give us the time report.
Yes, sure. So our winner today for the time is Salahuddin Belhannish, who was exact on time. Congratulations. For the other presenters, they varied from 22 seconds to 42 seconds, past their time. I just want to focus one more thing. Is so the idea behind these sessions is to open a dialogue between our researchers in the UK. So in relation to questions, if you had any and it wasn't answered during this meeting, please feel free to email the presenters back and forth your questions. That's all. Thank you. For Imane, she had like 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Bravo.
Bravo, yeah. Well done. Okay, now let's move on to Mr. SALHI for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for your excellent work. And I want to thank everyone who attended and contributed to the discussion today. I would also like to thank all the organizing team for their work, especially Mrs. the Timekeeper and Mrs. the General Evaluator for their excellent organization of the session. I was very pleased with the brilliant presentations of the PhD students and the level of each presentation. I wish you all the best in your academic career and in your research. In the framework of the program initiated by the embassy, there will be several activities for this academic year 21-22. We will continue to organize our monthly meeting, the Embassy Research Network, and I would like to ask all students who want to contribute in the next editions to express this willingness to participate, either by presenting a summary of their research thesis or by presenting a summary of a published article or any other presentation that they consider useful. We are open to any proposal that you want to share with us regarding academic activities with your universities or you intend to do so. There are a couple of points to highlight before closing the session, which relates to renewal delays. We have been informed that there was technical issues accessing the students' renewal files through the online platform from the Ministry of Higher Education. We have followed this up with their services today morning and found out the reason behind this delay. Due to this technical difficulty, those students are still waiting for their files to be processed by the renewal services. We are keeping in close contact with the ministry, especially with Mrs. Belouchet and Mrs. Melouk, and we will update you as soon as we get more information from them. We hope that this problem will be resolved early next week. In any case, several students received emails today notifying them of the renewal of their scholarship for this academic year. I would ask the concerned students affected by this delay to be patient. Thank you once again, and I give the floor to the moderator.
Thank you so much, Mr. SALHI, for these words, and thank you everyone who have attended. We hope to see you soon in another session, and have a lovely evening, everyone. And if you've got any questions, just reach the presenters directly. See you soon in another one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.